Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Jeanette McNeely. We're honoured to acknowledge Air Commodore Peter McDermott, Air Force Association National Vice President, Wing Commander Michael Garside, Australian War Memorial Air Force Fellow, and Mr. Alex McGowan, Naval Association of Australia, ACT Section. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Maurice Robert Jones. Maurice Jones was born on the 5th of August 1924 in Buet, Victoria, the son of Norman and Mary Jones. His father was a draper and his mother helped him in the business. Maurice had a brother, Kenneth, and two sisters, Norma and Elma. Growing up, Maurice, known as Moss, was a keen Boy Scout. He was educated at Albury High School, where he was a member of the school's tennis team. He was also fond of swimming and table tennis, and visited Tasmania as a member of the New South Wales football team in an interstate competition. After leaving school, Jones found work as a bank clerk and then ledger keeper at the National Australia Bank. He enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 4th of December 1942. Aged 18, he trained as an air gunner and in July 1943 was made sergeant. On the 27th of September 1943, Jones embarked from Melbourne for overseas service, arriving in the United Kingdom in November. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in British throughout the course of the war. Further training followed in Britain, and in January 1944, Jones was promoted to Flight Sergeant. On the 12th of July, he was posted to number 467 Squadron, RAAF, as part of Bomber Command. The squadron flew the 4-engine Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. Just before 11:30 p.m. on the night of the 20th of July 1944, Jones and his crew set off from Waddington, England, as part of a major raid on the railway centre in Courtrai in Belgium. The squadron committed 14 aircraft to the mission, and Jones was an air gunner on Lancaster POE. Although the raid was ultimately a success, Number 467 Squadron lost 2 crews. One of them was Flight Sergeant Jones's. The aircraft failed to return to base and was later determined to have been hit by enemy fire. In the nearby village of Kaskirka, witnesses had seen the aircraft flying homewards at around 2 a.m. on the 21st. It was in flames and had crashed 3 kilometres from the village church. There were no survivors. Also on board were British Sergeant Leslie Arcus and Australians, Flying Officer David Barlow and Flight Sergeants James Abraham, Edward Freem, Jack Olson and Robert Scott. After the war, the remains of the Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. Jones's body was identified and he was reinterred there under the inscription, "His duty nobly done, beloved by all." Maurice Jones was 19 years old. He was mourned by his family and friends who placed in memoriam notices in the newspapers after his passing. His brother, Kenneth Jones, served in the Australian Imperial Force during the war and returned home safely. Flight Sergeant Maurice Jones's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst more than 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Maurice Robert Jones, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you a very good evening.